Hello and welcome to the Nomiki Show. I am Nomiki Konst. So are you all set for another attack on the Capitol? It didn't happen yesterday, despite the warnings, but maybe this weekend or next week? Sure, why the hell not? It isn't like we have fixed any of these major causes that enabled, encouraged, and ultimately made possible the January 6th insurrection. Sure, okay, Trump is out of office, that's part of it, but that doesn't seem to stop him from peddling lies about the election and much else, and of course the Republicans echoing those lies. So fantasy filter bubbles are still there to stew rage until it bubbles over. And speaking of filter bubbles, what have we done to clean up the mess the tech giants have created? January 6th was brought to you by Facebook, Twitter, and the rest. The insurrection was the logical, maybe even inevitable outcome of their business model. And under the law, they've been given great power with zero responsibility. This is Spider-Man speak for Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Publish and let others perish. What's remarkable is that we all know how broken this is. We all do. The Capitol riots just brought the chickens home to roost. And what have we done? Oh, we've held hearings. Okay, sure, hearings are entertaining, especially where baby-faced Facebooked Mark Zuckerberg can be right next to the Twitter's beard, Jack Dorsey, you know, that long beard he has. But hearings are not going to stop this. Structural changes are how to stop this. Changes that make tech companies responsible for who and what they publish. And just as important, make the tech companies responsible for who they keep from publishing and who they block from big audiences. It isn't just that they enable the right, although they sure do, they also undermine the left. Right now, we can see how the tech platforms are tinkering with their algorithms to tamp down audiences for progressive shows that challenge capital. When you empower one side and undermine the other side, you are going to get an imbalance power. You'll get whatever that imbalance of power gives you, like the January 6th attack. So step one must be new rules holding the tech companies accountable for how they run their businesses. Step two is real action against the neo-Nazis and white supremacists who plotted the January 6th attacks and are plotting more as we speak. The FBI has known for a long time that they are by far the most serious terrorist threat to the United States. So having spent trillions of dollars and millions of lives in a war on terror focused in many of the wrong places, let's put that same energy into crushing domestic terror from the extremist right wing. Be clear. This has nothing to do with free speech or cancel culture or any of the other excuses the conservatives and well, you know, the neocons have come up with. This isn't about what they say and what they write, except to the extent that what they are saying and what they are writing is meet on Pennsylvania Avenue and we will go lynch Nancy Pelosi. These are criminals. We are spending a lot of time and attention on the drawings in an old Dr. Seuss book when what we really need to be doing is drawing out these plots against America and shutting them down hard. And to think, I saw that on Mulberry Street. Dr. Seuss book. All right, well, we have a wonderful show today. We're going to talk about the $15 minimum wage vote today a little bit later. This is Fem Friday. We have Helen Hong, the comedian here. She's going to be joining us a little bit later. But first, we're going to be talking about, you know, what we just discussed with Kali Holloway. We're going to be talking about the rise of the far right and the crackdown on white supremacy and what we need to do about it. You know, it's this news cycle is a little bit crazy, so we have to keep our eye on the prize. And the prize is weeding out white supremacy, in my opinion. So we'll be right back after the break with Kali Holloway. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. Kali Holloway is a columnist for the Daily Beast and The Nation. She had an article at the end of January titled, "Are we witnessing the emergence, of a new lost cause?" in which she talks about the lost cause after the Civil War in weeding out white supremacy. Kali, look, we don't have her on screen. Do we have her? I think we're missing the image. Something's going on here. May have to take a second before we bring her back in. All right, guys, I guess this is the moment that I do my my pitch. If you have a chance, go check out our book club. Oh, there we go. I'll come back with that later. Kali Holloway, thanks for joining us. Kali is a columnist. Kali, I'm sorry about that.
It's like California,
Kali,
but shorter.
I apologize for that.
No
Kali
worries.
Holloway. She's a columnist for the Daily Beast and The Nation. And we were just talking about your article in The Nation from about a month ago. Are we witnessing the emergence of a new lost cause? So, in yesterday, there was supposed to be another terrorist attack on the Capitol. And now you have the Capitol calling to the Pentagon to have backup, long-term backup, in case there are more attacks that they're not aware of. My opening today, the timing of this was perfect. We had you booked in advance. Was literally about, we got to do something. It can't just be hearings. It can't just be these ceremonial things. It can't be, crying out loud and moving on to the next crises. So you've outlined what happened after the Civil War and weeding out white supremacy. Can you give us a little bit of a brief on how that went down?
Yeah, so you have this period post-war when you have an aggrieved white Southern class, right, that really wants to take what was this fight essentially to keep Black people enslaved forever. And they want to change the narrative to create sort of, this honorable fight that existed, and also to create the idea that the South, the antebellum South, was actually this wonderful sort of idyllic place. And that the real problem was that there was this, overreaching, warmongering North that came in. I mean, it's the ultimate outside agitators story, right? And so that's what we talk about when we talk about the lost cause, is this idea that there was a victimized class of white folks who were, victimized by losing their free labor, right? Yeah. And who were then, that was compounded by just not just the emancipation of Black folks, but the enfranchisement of Black folks, right? Because there's this idea that race is a zero-sum game in this country. And so every gain that Black folks make, even the most modest civil rights gains have to then be viewed as a sucking or loss of power from white folks. And we watch these backlashes throughout history, right? So we saw it post-Reconstruction. I've done a lot of work around Confederate monuments. And so, you have this effort consistently to put up monuments that, again, valorize this fight, right? And that change the narrative and that turn these dishonorable figures who literally were fighting to keep folks in bondage, that turns them into honorable figures. And even, the most warped aspect of it for me, I think, is that somehow that gets turned into this treasonous fight. It literally was a treasonous fight against the Union, is portrayed as a patriotic fight. Right. And we see the same thing with the Capitol, right? They called themselves patriots. They were they were acting on white grievance, the idea that things are moving too fast, which is what the white backlash, that is a part of our history. It's a consistent sort of, every time the pendulum swings one way on civil rights for marginalized folks, not just Black folks, but anyone who is not part of the dominant culture. Every time that it swings even slightly in that direction, there is immediately a white backlash that sees itself as victimized, and then uses forms of white terror to demand that power be returned to it. And it's rooted in this fear of loss of status, loss of power. This is just the latest iteration of it.
So after the Confederacy lost, the Confederates lost, how did this come to form? Were there organizations? How did Lincoln must have had some awareness during the time. How did this go down?
Well, obviously, you have Johnson, Lincoln is killed. Johnson comes in. He is a Southerner. He is very much a sympathizer with former Confederates. He essentially sympathizes with the folks who turn their allegiance away from this country. So when you have the field order that then gave Black folks the notorious 40 acres and a mule, that land starts to get distributed and is then re-seized, right? I mean, can you imagine someone giving you a plot of land to work? You have given your allegiance to this country. You have worked daily for no money. You are suddenly emancipated. You were given a plot of land and it is then taken. That land was returned to Confederates. And then we have these groups that sprouted up. I mean, obviously, we have the Klan that was formed by 6 Confederate soldiers in 1866. But we also have things like the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, the Daughters of the Confederacy and Sons of Confederate Veterans, both formed in the 1890s. And they're essentially, they exist almost solely at their core to propagate this idea of the lost cause. This idea that, the South was and had been this idyllic place, and it's only Northern interventionism that ruined that. And that slavery had been a benevolent institution, that it had very many upsides. It's a way of also making Black folks complicit in their own oppression, right? If Black folks were most content when they were enslaved, then it wasn't so bad, right? And also just this idea that there was this fight for states' rights, when really there was one right they were fighting for, which was to keep Black folks enslaved. So
was that sort of a spin at the time with these organizations? Did they start to pivot and make it more about states' rights as a cause at that time?
I mean, that's kind of core
through the
to
organizations. I'm saying, like, was it like a
Yeah, I mean, initially, they did both actually start out as groups that were doing kind of necessary work. I mean, the United Daughters of the Confederacy used to take the bodies of soldiers that didn't have money, who died on the battlefield, and they gave them these very modest headstones that their families couldn't afford. We see the shift shortly thereafter as we start to approach the beginning of the 20th century, when they then started to, these kind of grand Confederate monuments that we see. So changing what the war was actually about, despite the fact that we have the declarations for the causes of secession, despite the fact that there's the cornerstone speech from Alexander Stephens, like, we have the words of the folks who were there, right? Confederate leaders. We know why the war was fought. But just to mention how effective that campaign has been, there was a poll in 2015 of Americans, and while 53% of Americans do believe that the central cause of the Civil War was slavery, 41% think it's states' rights.
Oh my God.
This kind of ambiguous fight for what's often called, freedom from tyranny. And you see that language a lot, right? With the kind of folks who were involved with the Capitol riots, the kind of folks that were involved with the Tea Party. They co-opt the language of the oppressed. So they talk a lot about fear of being enslaved, right? There's this fear that Joe Biden is a tyrant. And it's, the language really doesn't change. But I think at its core, it's the idea that there is a certain kind of enslavement and a certain kind of oppression that they are not supposed to experience. That is an oppression for other people. And so that kind of victimization is solely theirs when they feel like their rights are being taken.
I mean, these groups were eventually, and their ideas were co-opted in the rhetoric by the modern day, I mean, much further down, Republican Party. Yeah. I mean, but back then, okay, so I understand what the modern day Republican Party's agenda is, but back then, I mean, there's a point where you lost. What's the end goal? What is it? Like, is it just to feel like they're in power? That's what's confusing to me. I mean, there's clearly funding.
This is an early version of the culture wars.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea is that they were actually on the side of right. That there was something that was very much stolen from them. And really inherent to this kind of ideology is the idea that the country is your birthright. So, any loss of power is therefore stepping on something that is rightfully yours. And that's really central to the Republican platform at this point. And the appeals that they make, I mean, since, we can talk about the Southern strategy, we can talk about every single way that is looked. but it's the same idea, stoking this anger that something is being stolen back from you, not by the people that are in office who have accrued everything, and who are endlessly working to accrue more money and power all the time, but by someone who doesn't look like you, or who's, the whole idea that your vote is somehow inherently illegitimate if you are not white or Christian.
Can we talk a little bit about the statues and how that emerged during this time?
Sure, the Confederate statues.
Monuments, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think the United Daughters of the Confederacy deserves a lot of the credit for this, right? They put in the most legwork on it. The Sons of backbreaking legwork.
They get a star.
They get 3 A's for effort. And now that's been taken up by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. But to go back, the idea was, there was this, at the same time that you have this information war happening, you also have a war of terror happening, right? So we see post-Reconstruction, tons of lynchings. We know that there were roughly, this is a modest count. We still don't know the numbers. We're constantly tallying them. But roughly 6,400 people, Black folks that were lynched for infractions from not stepping off the sidewalk when a white person was walking towards you, not calling a white man Mr., that kind of thing could get you killed. And another tool of that campaign of harassment and intimidation and reminding Black folks who had been relatively recently emancipated to remain in their place. These were the tangible elements of that campaign, right? Like you could literally see them in your town. And they were very careful to put them in places of power, which is why there are so many Confederate monuments on the lawns of state houses.
How did they get that done? That requires.
Well, they didn't. There's a whole sort of different system, right? So it's sort of a co-opting of public space. Now there are rules and regulations about what you put up, and then they would just go to a town. They were often very crafty at raising the money themselves. They were often the wives of an elite class. So they would raise the dollars themselves. They would talk to the local politicians themselves. They would say, the community wanted to put it in a certain place. It was often on a dividing line between the Black and white parts of town. Wow. And they would erect them. That's the thing, is when we talk about these monuments today, there's not a lot of acknowledgement of the fact that Black folks didn't have a voice in whether or not these things went up. So when we have this idea that they went up and there was any kind of community agreement on it, that's just an absurd notion. They were put up by women who were really industrious in doing their part to help the cause of white supremacy. And they were very explicit about it too. There was a monument that was put up in the early 1920s in North Carolina that was specifically an ode to the Klan. That was on the monument itself. And I've written a bunch about also monuments that they are called loyal slave monuments, which are generally the blandest looking monuments, but they say much more explicitly and much more loudly what all Confederate monuments mean to say. They generally have the words inscribed on them, and they thank enslaved folks for their loyalty. They wanted to put up a massive one of these statues to mammies, the beloved mammies, in 1923, and it actually got as far as Congress, and
oh my gosh.
Was also almost funded, and at the last minute kind of got cut off. And obviously this has become a much more I feel like many more people are aware of this now, but we see bursts of these things going up always as part of the backlash, right? Always after there is any kind of movement on civil rights for Black folks. And now the Sons of Confederate Veterans are putting them up.
Was the Sons of Confederate Veterans, that's fascinating, that it still exists, but was there pushback at the time? Were there white people? Were Black communities organizing? I'd love to see what the tension was like during that time.
I love that you asked that, because I feel like one of the most unattended to parts of this story is that even under the threat of Jim Crow, there has always been resistance to these monuments, right? There have always been particularly Black folks who did what they could. There was a monument that I worked a lot on trying to take down in Charleston. It was to John C. Calhoun, who was the person who is credited with saying that slavery was a positive good. not so much as a necessary evil. And when that monument originally went up in 1887, the Black community around it found all kinds of ways to protest it. They did it through defacement, often, sort of mocking defacement. There's a story of a kid shooting at the monument with a tiny pistol when it was being taken down, because it was also sort of horrific to look at, right? It just wasn't much of an architectural feat. There's a description of a writer who was there at the scene, said there was a crowd of young Black boys who, as he was being lowered off the pedestal, threw mud in the eye of Calhoun as he was being lowered. And that's, I've seen these stories in other communities. There's always this kind of pushback that happened that didn't necessarily get very well recorded, but there are instances of it. And also Black newspapers often were very explicit in calling out why these monuments were there, what their intention was, and that there was always this effort on the part of the white South to get back to the antebellum South and to remind Black folks of what their place was. So yeah, this is when we, the movement that has happened post 2015, particularly when the massacre happened at Mother Emanuel in Charleston, that is part of a continuing line of pushback and protest against Confederate monuments that started the moment that they started going up.
But it happened in the North too. How did that, without these organizations pushing for them? I mean, how did these monuments get placed all across the North?
Well, I think one, there were Confederates all over the place, right? I mean, there were Confederate sympathizers all over the place. And also, there are UDC groups all over the country. I mean, there was a Confederate monument that was just taken down in Seattle that tons of people didn't know existed. There's one on the south side of Chicago. It's literally located in the same cemetery where Ida B. Wells' grave is.
Oh my God.
There are tons of these in what are now predominantly Black or even were historically Black neighborhoods in some of our most quote unquote liberal cities. So, I think it always is an indicator of the fact that the Confederacy wasn't just a set of 11 contiguous states that happened to believe in slaveholding. It was an ideology that was imported to parts across this country. And those Confederates went out and they did the exact same, the co-optation of space that I mentioned. They did that at parts near and far, way beyond the Mason-Dixon line.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about today and how we deal with the rising white supremacy. And I hate to say rising, but it is. It's dangerously expanding and facilitated by a lot. I mean, we started off the show talking about how the least we could do is rein in on these tech companies that are whose algorithms are boosting it and have bias and racism and sexism and they generate off of hate. But I mean, it's such a crisis at this point. What do you think are some of the things that could be done culturally, legislatively, organizationally, movement-wise to address this extraordinary risk right now to our society?
I mean, I think a thing that we could start with is we have known at least since 2015 that the greatest national security threat in this country was white militia groups, white supremacist groups. That is not new. And yet, instead of looking into those groups, the FBI spent an awful lot of time focusing on quote unquote Black identity extremists, which was just a way of expanding surveillance of any Black activist that was involved in liberation movements. So I think that there has been, at least rhetorically, a shift in the way that we talk about that. I would love to see that with this regime change, to actually see them pursue that and focus more on that. I think that movements have already been well aware of this, right? They have been looking at these groups in a way that, and pleading with the authorities to look at these groups and organizing to fight back the whole time. So I'm not particularly worried about how activists deal with this or the people that have been watching. I'm more worried about the people who should have been tracking this all along, who were telling us to look elsewhere or that there were bigger problems. I'm more worried about those groups not doing the work of making sure that those groups realize that there are consequences for what they do. Because there's always been an understanding in this country that white terror and white anger can express itself any way that it wants. White grievance is justified. So that has to really be the starting point.
I mean, now, unfortunately, because of these attacks, folks are starting to understand just how integrated white supremacy is in our police departments across the country. And, as any Republican likes to say over and over, cities across America are democratically led, meaning Democratic lawmakers or city councils, mayors, et cetera. This is like the $1 million question everyone's trying to figure out. What is it going to take for our Democratic mayors to hold these police departments and unions accountable for what has been actively investigated by the FBI? A broken FBI has been investigating these police departments for years, knowing.
Yeah, they put out a report in 2006 warning about the infiltration of. Your guess is actually as good as mine. It's interesting. I'm actually in the midst of, like, as we're talking, like, writing a piece about a specific officer that I'm looking at that heads up a neo-Confederate group. And the Department of Public Safety that he works for is aware of the fact that he is a probation officer. They are aware of his associations going back to as far as 2019. Activists outed him. They said there was going to be an investigation. Nothing has happened. So, now we're in this kind of the conversations being pushed far harder because of what happened at the Capitol. But at the micro level, I think there's an awareness of both this kind of, I don't even want to call it an infiltration, because that would imply that these folks are hiding. A lot of these folks are very open in their politics. There is an atmosphere that welcomes them in their politics. I don't know what it will take. This is a conversation we've been having for a long time. It's a conversation that, those legislators are aware of. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I worry that what moves political mountains in this country, particularly as they relate to race, is tragedy.
Yes, but even then, it still doesn't seem to. I mean, the largest uprising, in history was this last summer, and what did these mayors do? Paint BLM on the street?
Yeah. We got fed a lot of, I think, just sort of misinformation to calm everybody down, that they were actually contemplating changing the way that these budgets looked. And, I live in New York City. There was just a lot of moving of money around, you know? So I actually, I'm tired. I don't know what it's going to take. Yeah. I'm tired of this, having these conversations over and over and over, because we say the same things.
Right.
And there is the same, we're told again and again that something's going to change, and inevitably it never does.
I mean, even with the money moving, that's one thing, defunding, reallocating resources.
But doing a
great
serious
goal.
Investigation of,
that's right.
These cultures of white supremacist cultures that exist in these police departments and in the military. I mean,
exactly.
I just don't think that has been a priority, even with the conversation that we're having. And I would love to see that shift, but I don't know, aside from tragedy. And as you just said, that doesn't even seem to be able to move those political mountains. So
it seems as if the shame is not. What really surprised me was when Bill de Blasio's own children were doxxed by the police union, and he still didn't do anything, which I don't understand. How much power do they have over him? What do they have on him that prevents you from doing that?
I think there's this policy of appeasement that I see and capitulation that I see in so many realms to this kind of right wing, aggressive. I feel like it's the same way that the Capitol rioters, ahead of actually getting to, before the insurrection even happening, we've seen again and again just this fear of these groups that prevents actual taking of action, right? Either on progressive policy or in dealing with the kind of problems that are endemic to them. So, I'm there with you. I don't have the answers. I would love to see it change, and I spend a lot of time writing about this stuff.
I mean, I think the only thing is just to keep pressuring these Democratic lawmakers who, they've been able to ride it for a while without full, intense scrutiny. And hopefully hopefully that'll shift. We have a mayoral election in New York right now, and I think in a couple of other cities as well, major cities. So maybe.
Yeah.
Kali Holloway, so
Thank
interesting.
you so much for
I'd love to
having
have you
me.
back on. Keep us in the loop about future work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll be right back with Helen Hong. We'll take a quick little break. Oops. All right, guys. So Sunset Lake CBD, you may have heard me talk about in the past. It is a farmer-owned company that ships craft, that's important, CBD products directly from their farm in Vermont to your door. Sunset Lake CBD has something for everyone. They offer tinctures, gummies, salves, and coffee and fudge. There's that too. Designed to help with stress, aches, and pains. I will tell you all about that in a second because I used it a lot this week. It is originally a dairy farm from the Ben and Jerry's. So like, not only are they a dairy farm, they're Ben and Jerry's progressive, Bernie supporting Vermont dairy farm. They decided to diversify and grow premium hemp there instead. Customers support sustainable agriculture that enhances rural communities and creates meaningful employment in those communities. Their minimum wage is, $15 an hour. Kirsten Cinema, Joe Manchin. And employees of the company own the majority of the company, and they support independent media. That's pretty amazing that they choose to advertise with independent media like our show, The Nomiki Show, and The David Pakman Show, and, those people over at The Majority Report. So I have to tell you, because this week I had so many aches and pains. I had a migraine issue that the CBD helped me out with. I took some of the hemp and smoked it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on air. Yeah, I can totally say that on air. I smoked the hemp. That helped me with my migraines. I get migraines a lot. But 2 days ago, I threw out my back, and I'm sitting here with like a heating pad behind my back right now. The CBD tincture, the oil that you put like wherever you want to do, I put it in my tea, I put it in my whatever I'm drinking. It has made a huge difference for my back pain. I'm like, it's kind of amazing. I'm taking instead of Advil at this point. It's really made a difference. I thought I would try it out, and turns out it works really well. I know, Dorsey, you've been using some of the products. I've also loved the gummies, which helps me sleep. The fudge was amazing. I ate it all.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the gummies and the fudge. I had a friend who got some of the fudge, and they're really excited about it because they can't really deal with like the gummy kind of situation with their stomach, and so the fudge was a good option for them. They really enjoyed that. But yeah, the tincture is probably my favorite also. It's it doesn't really taste like other tinctures, which is a little, sometimes it's too much of the kind of weedy taste, Yeah. This one tastes great, and yeah, it's like easy. Like I just have like a shot of it. I just take it in the dropper and shoot it at the end of the night, and kind of loosens up my back and everything and lets me sleep comfortably. So yeah, one of my favorites for sure.
The back, I was really surprised actually, how much it affected my back. Like it really did loosen me up. And, you know, I've said this before. I had tried CBD several times and I never felt like it did anything. And I'm really very impressed. Anyways, you guys can try it out. Definitely try their gummies too. They really, really, really help with sleep. You can use the promo code NOMI, NOMI, for 20% off your entire order at sunsetlakecbd.com. Promo code NOMI. You get 20% off for your entire order at sunsetlakecbd.com. We will put that address in the info section on YouTube. All right, we will be right back with Helen Hong.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. I'm so excited to have the one and only Helen Hong on. She is the host of the Jobsolete podcast and the Go Fact Yourself podcast. She's a comedian, an actor, a news commentator. My parents love her when she's on NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, a frequent character on Silicon Valley, CBS's Unicorn. There's so many things. Go check out her IMDb page. I can't say them all. And she looks like she's in like you're in a recording studio. That's a first. I love it. Oh, you're on mute. All good.
Hi, Nomiki.
Hi, Helen.
Welcome to my state-of-the-art podcast studio, aka my bedroom closet.
This is your closet?
Look, I still have the bar. Look, the clothing bar. And look at the craftsmanship.
Amazing.
Look at the craftsmanship. I literally bought these sound foam things off of some dude on Craigslist. And I command stripped every single one of them myself. And this is an old blackout curtain. Because, Nomiki, when you're as big time as me, you spare no expense.
You're just like all these DJs who set up their home studios. They've got this is way nicer.
Thank you.
Listen,
and I'm wearing my American t-shirt today because racism.
Yeah. The topic of our show. Just wait. So speaking of racism, because you know, we have this show on Friday. It's Fem Fridays, and we like to remind people you know, just about intersectionality in terms of feminism. But I want to start off with the news of the day, which is intersectional, and it's the $15 minimum wage that a nice handful of Democrats don't seem to understand is important when the economy is spiraling out of control and the minimum wage hasn't been increased for, at this point, decades. So let's play a clip of the fabulous Senator Bernie Sanders pointing out that the fight for 15 is a feminist issue.
And let us be very clear that when we talk about waiters and waitresses, some 70% of tip workers in this country are women who suffer from 3 times the poverty rate of the rest of the U.S. workforce. And importantly, and increasingly so, amazingly, during this pandemic, waitresses suffer from the highest rates of sexual harassment of workers in any industry because they are forced to tolerate inappropriate customer behavior. And we're hearing stories where people in a restaurant, guys in a restaurant, say, well, take your mask off. You want a tip? Let me see how you look. And clearly this is unacceptable behavior. The restaurant industry has some of the highest rates of sexual harassment. In a workplace where 70% of the workers are women and where they rely on their customers to determine their wages because of tips, women are often expected to withstand sexual harassment in order to get those tips. In states where the sub-minimum wage has been eliminated, sexual harassment has been cut substantially because women no longer have to take that. It's not an all or nothing proposition.
She's not.
Oh.
Wait for it. Wait for it. This is, and pick your feminist. That's what I want you to do, Helen.
Choose your own horrible adventure. Wow.
Oh, let's just see it one more time. It's done with so much sass, though. So sassy.
She's so cute in her abhorrentness. She is so adorable in her troll. You know what? I know that she's from Arizona, right?
Yeah.
I know that there's different dialects and different like slang words for things in other parts of the country. How do you say in Arizona weak sauce? How do you say that?
I think it's like it's the opposite of like Cholula. It's like mayonnaise. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not the comedian. Come on, that's your job.
Kristen Cinema was weak sauce. However they say it in Arizona, super weak sauce there. And like looked cute, like came out strong, looked like she was gonna be a Cholula and ended up being mayonnaise. No, Kristen, no. Come on.
One more time. But she's not alone. She's not alone. I think what's so infuriating about her is that she was once a Green candidate. She wrote in the Arizona Republic, this just broke. I don't know, Dorsey, if you have this on screen, it's in the Slack. But she wrote in the Arizona Republic in 2002, a letter from Kirsten Sinema criticized capitalism. Quote, until the average American realizes that capitalism damages her livelihood while augmenting the lives of the wealthy, the almighty dollar, all caps, will continue to rule. Ooh, what happened?
How far we've fallen. Is Kirsten?
Mayonnaise.
Cinema?
Mayo.
AKA like, Mayo. Mayo dressed up as Cholula, the worst kind of mayo, by the way. I mean, it's unbelievable. This reminds me of like when I was campaigning for Bernie Sanders in 2016, and I would often encounter, this was when he was running against Hillary. We all remember. And, I would like be out there in the streets trying to campaign for him and like voter drives and stuff. And I would often have mostly white women being like, giving me like, no. Because I'm a feminist. And I want to be like, bitch, I'm a feminist too, only I'm a feminist for all women of all colors. So go jump into your Range Rover and STF you, Like, come on. Like, give me a break. Like, just because Kirsten is in her cute outfit, she's not voting for women today. She did not vote. She did not stand for us today in her cute little outfit and her sassy little, like her little pose. She really decimated the fight for women today, because what Bernie said is exactly right. Like, I can't believe every time, remember traveling to foreign countries? Nomiki, remember when we used to do that?
Yeah.
Every time I would go to foreign country and I would try to tip and they'd be like, perplexed. Like, you left money on the table. I once had a waitress chase me down on the street because she was like, you left your money on the table. And I'm like, no, that's for you. And she's like, I don't get it. Because I live in a functional society.
Yes.
Like, the whole tipping concept is like, what are we doing? We're the only stupid country that does this.
Tipping? And we We actually learned from one of our other guests, Representative Rad from Pennsylvania, that it's a legacy of racism, of slavery. It's racist and it's a legacy of slavery.
Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise. Surprise, surprise. Like so many other things in this country is a legacy of slavery and, and anti-feminism, misogyny, like all of that is wrapped up. What Bernie said is absolutely right. And you could picture it. I could absolutely picture when he said, there are servers out here wearing their masks, trying to do a good job. And these disgusting men are like, take your mask off. I want to see your pretty, pretty face, or I'm not going to tip you. Like, what? It's 2021. Like, why are we living this way? If you go to any other country, not even industrialized country, no other country ties your restaurant performance to, like how much the customer thinks that you're worthy of getting paid.
How you're flirting, basically. Oh, yeah. I remember. I mean, I don't know if you ever served, but
I did.
I
was
some stories.
Horrible. Oh my God. I was a server when I was young, during college, and it was to this day, the hardest job I've ever done.
Absolutely.
The hardest, because you have to deal with the public and because your wage is tied to it's like having 100 bosses a day, right? Like instead of having to deal with one manager, you have 100 to 200 to 300, however many customers you have. It's like having that many managers a day. Like, hi, how's my job performance? Hi, how's my job performance? Hi, how's my job performance? Doing that 100 times a day during your shift, like, oh my God, come on. It's so archaic.
It's not just archaic. Then there's the back. Like if something goes wrong, I remember, oh my God, I have the most terrible serving stories ever, but in many ways. But I remember one time I made a very big mistake in which I was a cocktail server at a cigar bar. Fun little story for folks at a steakhouse. I don't eat meat. And I carried outside on one of these trays. And it was like, remember the trays? Like there were good trays and there were bad trays. And this one was a little slipperier. And we had those tall, it was a hot day, tall beers.
No.
I had 6 of them.
Oh no. Oh no.
And
I see where this is going, Nomiki. I see where this is going.
It gets so bad. It was like a table of like 13 people. And the whole thing spills on a woman. So I'm losing my mind. I go back. Of course, we're going to pay for a dry cleaning, everything. Like, I'm so apologetic because I'm, of course, that woman who's just like, I'm sorry. So I go back. New tray.
No. Okay, I thought I knew where this is going, and it's so much. I'm like, oh God.
And I'm Greek, and we believe in the evil eye, and so sometimes, like, I think it just. I went right back around the same woman.
No. You dumped 2 trays of drinks on the same person? Oh my God, no.
I somehow kept my job. I don't know how. I walked back and I was like, oh my God. And then what made me feel so bad was, of course, the tip. It's not just my tip. It's everybody who's helping,
That's right.
in the back as well. And they don't earn as much tip as the servers do. That's usually how it works. The bartenders, the back servers, the bussers, everybody.
That's right.
And that's what people don't understand. If you don't like your sassy little server who spills drinks on you or just didn't look at you right or didn't flirt with you, you're also hurting the rest of the restaurant as well.
Yes, because a lot of people, because if you've never served, you don't know. You have to tip out. They say tip out. You tip out the busboy. You tip out the cooks sometimes. Yep. And the other thing is every restaurant is managed differently.
Right.
So they have the leeway to do it however they want to do it. Some places require that every server puts all of their server money into the same pot, and then we all split the pot. So you might be having a great day, but that person's not having a great day, and you still have to split your, and the whole thing is stupid. It's archaic. It doesn't make sense. It absolutely opens up women, especially to sexual harassment. If you're serving a group of drunk dudes, a table of 10 drunk dudes who are watching the game at a bar, and they're like, hey, take your mask off. I want to see your pretty, pretty face.
That's where I would actually go to Lauren Boebert's bar where they're like, you can hold a gun. Have you ever heard the story of her her bar in like Colorado where there was a woman being harassed, so we now let women carry guns in a bar.
Great. That makes
that solves
sense.
it. How about you just pay fair wages? All right. So on the same topic, if we can put up the visual of the 8 Democrats who voted down the minimum wage, definitely want to show that. And, you know, these are the names of do you have it, Dorsey? There we go. Yeah. Sorry. These are the Democrats who voted down the minimum wage: Chris Coons, Delaware; Angus King, Maine, Joe Manchin, of course, Tom Carper; Jeanne Shaheen, John Tester, Maggie Hassan; 2, by the way, New Hampshire senators, Kyrsten Sinema. And that is their net worth. NA for Kyrsten Sinema.
Whoa.
He's going to be the spokesperson for this soon.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. But Bernie's not a Democrat, guys. Bernie is not a Democrat. Let's just go back to that. So, I mean, I think the frustrating part of all this, right, is that what do we do at this point? It feels like shame is not working on these Democrats. And I think the movement is growing increasingly frustrated with, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of an economic disaster. We haven't raised wages and we've been fighting for 15 for a decade. And yet there's nothing. We don't have our checks. We don't have health care. We're about to all get evicted like tomorrow. Helen, where are we going? What country are we moving to?
It's Mars. At this point, it's got to be Mars because Canada's not taking us, Nomiki. Canada's like, sorry, we're not taking, you guys are not sending us your best. I mean, and it's a nightmare because like, you know, these Democrats, it's so goddamn disappointing because like, I understand. Okay. Take the case of someone like Joe Manchin. You know, I get he's from West Virginia, one of the reddest states. He's a Democrat and from one of the reddest states. Like, I understand if you know, for your political survival, you need to vote against a social issue like you're against gay marriage or something. That's something that might actually hurt you in a state like West Virginia politically. But a $15 minimum wage, who is against that? Like, what are you talking about? The average voter in West Virginia could really use a wage increase. Like, I've been to West Virginia. I've seen footage from West Virginia. It's a mess. They need an influx of like higher wages stat in a state like West Virginia. So like, the whole thing is so insane to me. And, you know, again, you know, how do you say in West Virginia? Weak sauce.
Mountain Dew, not the opposite of Mountain Dew. Dirty water. How about that? Cracked gas water. But Bernie's not a Democrat, man. That's it. You got your fracked gas water and your non-spicy mayonnaise, and I don't know. I'm sure there's something for everybody.
Mayonnaise with a Cholula wrapper, the worst kind of mayonnaise. Okay, what are they saying? Like, why are they saying no? Like, what's the general consensus?
I don't understand because, you know, we've talked about this before on the show, how there are big businesses, Amazon and Costco, you know, horrible companies that are supporting $15 minimum wage now. They've been shamed into doing it. Who is lobbying these people against that? It's not, and it's also, it's not like they're coming up with an alternative. I mean, $11 was thrown out like overtime. This is insanity. We are so far behind in wages. This is beyond austerity. This is basically like handing an eighth of a Band-Aid to somebody whose like spleen is falling out of their body. And they like are missing a leg and they're trying to cross the street.
I love that you're like, hold on, I have this one left. Hold on. There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And, you know, and I have said this before publicly, like everybody's rent goes up every year. Yeah. Everybody's rent. I one time had a family member was my landlord. I was related to this person. He was my blood. And he was like, 3% annual. Biatch. I mean,
you're not coming to dinner on Friday.
I know we're blood.
That's what's happening.
I'm like, okay, are we going to talk about this at Thanksgiving? Because this is going down. If you're going to charge me a rent increase and we're related, you know what I mean? But that's like everybody's rent goes. Everybody knows everybody's rent goes up every freaking year, right?
Yep.
the cost of living, the cost of Mountain Dew, the cost of mayonnaise, the cost of Cholula. You know they're not. The cost of Cholula was not what it was 5
Like
years
$7
ago.
now.
It's not. It's not. The cost of even mayonnaise, not the cost what it was 5 years ago. So how is everything, all of the cost of living is going up, and yet we're still be like, oh, we're still at $7.25 an hour?
Unbelievable.
I mean, like literally,
It's basically like the coffee that they're drinking during an hour of work. I can't.
You know,
it's kids, Helen. It's all kids. It's just kids. It's like teenagers at working at McDonald's. That's all this is.
Okay, hello, 1950s. Hello, that was cute in like the 50s or 60s when that actually was true. When a minimum wage was when minimum wage workers were all teenagers, like making extra bucks to like buy their new bicycle or something.
Right.
That is not. It's not the 1950s. Hello, it's 2021. Most people make a very low wage. Adults with families are scraping by on a minimum wage.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. And it's, you know, I can't even, I still go back to weak sauce. I mean, the Democrats from these states, nobody is against the $15 minimum wage. And I think we're making the argument that it's going to be political suicide for them. You know, if this is something that you can't stand up for, you're not, the American people are so freaking fed up because most of them are living on starvation wages. Right. That they put a pussy grabbing sociopath. They voted him into the White House, and what's to prevent him from getting back there again? Because Guess what? The American people are still freaking pissed.
They are. And like, I think what's so strange about this is if I were Kamala Harris, who, you know, I'm going to guess wants to be president. She's run once. She's vice president now. I'd be thinking, what's going to get me elected in 4 years from now? Like, what will be the thing? How do we make sure Democrats stay? She could, if there's one person, maybe Manchin doesn't care. Maybe Sinema could flip to being a Republican. I don't know what their games are. Like, maybe they think they can't be primaried. That might very well be true. They may, who knows? But we're going to lose Congress. We'll probably lose the Senate again. And we might lose the presidency. And then there you go. Kamala Harris is stuck with being part of a one-term administration that couldn't even pass a $15 minimum wage, and fascism is back, and somehow Kamala Harris has nothing to run on. Like, just do it for your own ego, lady. Like, that's what I don't understand.
I think, like, because the only reason why any Republican or Democrat, the only reason why anybody would vote down a minimum wage increase like this is because they are being paid off by businesses, right?
Somebody,
like they're somebody, like some business lobby, because it's only the businesses that would stand to lose.
Yep.
Some business lobby, and it's like just make them wear t-shirts like, yes, I'm a whore. yes, I am a whore. Sorry. That's the bottom line. If you voted against this, yes, you are a whore. That's it. That's just the bottom line. There's no other, like, nobody on earth. If Joe Manchin on his deathbed is, it's going to say on his epitaph, I voted against the minimum wage.
Like 35 times in my life.
Good for you.
And it also shows that Joe Biden has absolutely no leadership skills.
Well, I mean,
he's not acting like Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson would be like, come over here into the White House while I'm sitting on my toilet. I'm going to lobby you, and you're going to sit here and you're going to listen to me because I'm the president of the United States. And if you don't, you're not getting X, Y, other Z. And then we're going to smear you and we're going to call you a pig fucker and all this stuff that they did back then. That's what they used to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they had balls.
They definitely, and you could see them on the toilet.
They had balls on display.
Stories. Okay, before we wrap, I want to just go to the quick thing, because this Bernie thing, Bernie cares about our dating lives, guys. Bernie wants COVID-19 to end for many reasons, and one of them is that young people should be able to have fun and date again. Yes, thank you, Bernie. My clock is ticking. I need to get out and meet someone.
Mama needs some play. I mean, come on. This is like, I've been wearing nothing but a half-tied bathrobe. That's what I'm wearing right now, Nomiki. That's all I've been, a half-tied bathrobe is all I've been wearing for literally like a year. So
but let's make it normal for going on dates too, because that would be, I think that's a new fashion. Well, like the men are starting to, explore skirts now. They're getting why it's becoming a big fashion item. It's because it's comfy. Let's play that clip real quick.
You got young people who want to go to school, want to socialize, want to date, want to do things that young people do, and they can't do it and have been unable to do that for the last year. And that has resulted in a very sharp increase in mental illness in this country, something, by the way, that this legislation also deals with. You got young people.
And not only just that, I love that. There's some statistics out saying that, shocker, that childbirth is down, or
yes,
interest.
There's a huge baby bust. Nobody's doing it. I love that Bernie's like the things that young people do, like they do it. Young people do it, and they can't do it. You know what I'm? There's no it's do, and it's hello. I haven't done it.
I feel like you could do it this way, you could do it that way, but the Zoom, it's not good enough. It is not good enough.
The one thing you can't do the one thing you can't do via Zoom is it. You just can't.
Jeffrey Toobin tried. It didn't work out so well. I saw it. Trust me, kids. No.
You don't want to go there. Nothing is sexy over Zoom. See this lighting? Knock you on the face. Imagine. Ooh, no, not. This lighting is not good for doing it. Yeah, it's not. It's true. I mean, baby bust is partially because nobody's doing it, but also because people are freaking depressed, and it's like everybody's like, well, why bother having a baby? The world is like
falling apart.
Crap right now,
and the economy's not strong enough for me to raise a child. All these things I've been thinking about because I'm at that little sliver where it's just do I freeze my eggs? Do I just, who's the next guy, guys? This is a confessional.
I love
Mom's going to kill me for talking
I love it. Nomiki, do what you got to do. Freeze the eggs. Do what you got to do. Keep your eggs fresh. I mean, I don't really care about that. The only viable eggs here are Cadbury cream. So I don't have that problem.
It's that season.
Yeah. But I mean, we got to get back to doing it. And doing it safely,
yes,
because some of us have been still doing it, but wearing a mask while doing it.
I was just gonna say,
not cute. It's not cute.
Social distance doing it. All right.
All right. Hi. Drop your pants. I'm gonna double mask and.
Dr. Fauci, who was, spearheaded the AIDS research in the 80s, and now he's spearheading COVID-19. This man is in between a very weird set of pandemics.
His resume, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's I mean, it's all tied together. What we're talking about is all tied together, right? We're dealing with COVID. We need to battle COVID, but also all the ancillary things that are happening, COVID has exposed what a weak infrastructure our country is in. If people are desperate for this $1,400 check, they were desperate for it a year ago. I mean, there's some countries that have been giving their people $1,400 or $2,000 a month. Yep. Since this started, and they're the same countries that don't require tipping, and they're the same countries that give all their citizens health care. I mean, hello, can I please move to New Zealand? No, yes. I cannot, because they're not taking me, Nomiki, right. Because I'm American, and they're like, no, thank you. We don't need any of y'all.
We have a guest on who he's American, and he comes in every Thursday, Arun Chowdhury from Germany. And one day he said to us, they're paying for our kids' football, I should say. Literally, they're like, here, we know this is stressful. Make sure that your kids are out of the house playing games outside, social Yeah. Yep. That's time to leave. Helen Hong, we love you. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
Go check out Go Fact Yourself podcast.
And my new YouTube channel. My new YouTube channel is called Old Korean Dad Stories. Old Korean Dad Stories. I interview my dad. He's so cute. Old Korean Dad Stories.
Yes. Oh, I will absolutely check that out. I went last night. I couldn't fall asleep, so I was just looking at videos of my grandfather telling stories. He's passed away, but it was just, they were so funny. And I'm like, I love this. This is It warms our heart.
Our old people they have like amazing stories. And that's why like I started this channel to interview my parents, because they have incredible stories. And especially now because of the Asian racist attacks on old people. So, but check it out on YouTube, old Korean dad stories on YouTube.
Go check it out. Helen Hong, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us. Come back anytime.
Thank you.
Love to have you. All right, everybody. Thank you for a great week, for joining us for Fem Friday. All right, who do we have here? Ray Lee says 40-year-olds want to date too. I think 40-year-olds are still kids. I don't know. Everybody should be able to date, especially, you know, the ones who don't have vaccines. All right, Ken M says, much love from a furious Arizonan. Yes, Ken M, I hear you. My family members in Arizona are saying the same thing. Craven James, Kirsten Cinema may want Americans working for starvation wages, but at least it's a dry starvation. All right, if you don't get that, that's Arizona might be hot, but it's a dry heat. It's a dry heat. That's good, Craven. Thanks to Professor Harvey K, who's in that live chat on Twitch and YouTube. Big thanks to Mini Docs, and Mario for working those algorithms. As always, our YouTube mods, keeping it clean, keeping it safe for everyone to have good discussions. Bob C, Choke in the Orb, and Chuck Diesel. And over at Twitch, we love Twitch. Thanks for everyone who's joining Twitch. We have Dorian Sapiens, A Difficult Truth, Nightbot, Our Means, and Nug Wrangler. We love you all. Be safe, be well, enjoy your weekend. We will see you on Tuesday. Stay in solidarity.